That's right. We're almost there. You can smell it.
Exactly.
Although the snow's coming in tomorrow, I
I like
think.
to call Thursdays Friday Eve.
Friday Eve.
Friday Junior. It's when the cool kids go out now, apparently. Okay, so I think we can start the recording.
The recording is good to go. All
right, awesome. So I think we'll kick it off. I know we're waiting for one more person, but I can appreciate you guys, like myself, have had an incredibly long day. So I will call this meeting to order at 5 p.m. I will read the land acknowledgement. The city of Thorold is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hadiwendonrunk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The city of Thorold stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. And now I'll ask the group if anybody has any conflict of interest to declare.
No.
Okay. And can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda? Oh, sorry, my screen. Lost my screen there. Okay, so Tim will move and Janice will second. Okay. I'll question all those in favor. Any opposed? No, we're all good. Okay. And we have no correspondence or, so now I don't know, I didn't see Cassie on the line.
So I sent her a couple of emails. Oh, she just responded. She's just trying to connect, so she'll be on in a minute.
Okay, great. And then, so while we're waiting for Cassie to join, in terms of the DIAC work plan for Thorold, any thoughts around that? Sydney or Matthew, I don't know if there's anything structured that we should know about.
So I guess I can speak to that. We're nothing specifically structured outside of we're trying to create some structure around the committee. Brand new for the city. New committee kind of comes with it a lot of organization and trying to figure out administratively how do we work and what are we trying to do. So I think one of the key aspects of the work plan for the next 4 years for this committee, looking at the rest of this year, is really trying to orient the committee to the city of Thorold, giving an opportunity to learn more about the programs and services and sort of the individuals involved, the policies, that kind of thing. And my hope would be that if that's where the committee wants to go to begin with, is what we do is invite certain of those people in to do those presentations and sort of give you an idea of where the city is at. Now, I know Cassie has just joined on. She's going to hopefully add to that and give you an idea of what the region did, and we can sort of pick up the conversation from there.
That's terrific. So welcome, Cassie. Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. Sorry, my computer is being very glitchy today.
No worries. So I'd like to welcome Cassie. Cassie, how do you say your last name? I won't try it.
Ogunniyi.
And Cassie is the Manager of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Indigenous Relations from Niagara Region. She'll be giving us a presentation on the Niagara Region's DEI work plan. I met Cassie last year when I joined the Niagara DIAC, and it was just a really phenomenal experience. Again, like us, they were starting new, so it was an adventure for all of us, but Niagara Region has done such tremendous work with their plan. So Cassie, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Excellent, thank you. And hopefully my children are entertaining themselves upstairs, but if you see a little head jump in, you have been forewarned. So am I able, it looks like I am able to share my screen. And there we are, so slow.
And we can see your screen. We're seeing, I think, your view, Cassie.
So are you?
There we go. Now it's presenter view.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so as Renee introduced, I'm Cassie Okanee, Manager of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Indigenous Relations. And I'm going to talk to you about the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Action Plan 2023 to 2027 that Renee was part of us doing at the region. So I'm going to get right into it. Some of the stuff, some of you may be more familiar with, but I did want to kind of, as this is a new committee, start with kind of some foundational pieces and bring you really right from where we have gone as a region. So hopefully, since you're involved in this, this advisory committee, you do understand the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion work. I don't really have to bring you along that train. You're kind of already bought into it. But in case people are asking and you need to, try and influence them as to why this work is really important. The research has shown that when we have a diverse workforce with true equity and inclusion, it strengthens the reputation of our organization or any other company. It attracts talent and more diverse professionals. It creates more healthy and respectful workplaces where people want to come to work and collaborate. They feel like they're part of a team, which then increases employee engagement, improves attraction and retention rates. Research has also shown when there's diverse people working together, this improves decision-making processes and problem-solving abilities, which in turn enhances innovation and increases organizational performance. This leads to more effective programs and services to meet the needs of our growing diverse population. This work really got kick-started in 2020 when Niagara Region and the 12 local area municipalities, we call those LAMs, so one of which is Thorold, signed the declaration to join the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities on September 18th, 2020. There's three main objectives of this coalition: improve municipal practices to promote social inclusion, establish policies to eradicate all forms of racism and discrimination, and promote human rights and diversity. So as part of joining that coalition, we committed to creating a DEI action plan. Again, just going to some basics. So what is diversity? Diversity, really, the key is asking the question, who is in the room? The official definition, one of the official definitions, is that this is the presence of differences in the lived experiences and perspectives of people. So it can include a huge range of things, such as the ones that you probably think of more readily, like race, ethnicity, place of origin, religion, physical or mental ability, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation or age. But it can also include things such as ways of thinking, seniority or union affiliation, history of trauma or economic hardship, family composition, etc. For the work that we did, we identified 12 dimensions of diversity that as we were doing the consultation work, that were considered to be important for us to ensure that we're including when we are thinking of planning, evaluation of services, doing any type of research in the community. So we did use these 12 dimensions to make sure that we had all voices or voices from each of these involved in creating the action plan. And then we'll be encouraging at the region level staff to be including these in planning, implementation, and evaluation of programs and services. So diversity is important as this encourages the elements that make each individual unique and provides the opportunities to learn from one another, connect with each other, and tailor programs and services to meet the needs of everyone. Equity asks who is trying to get into the room and can't, and looks at when we have true equity, everyone receives fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement in all areas of life. So a diagram that I really like is this one, which sometimes people are saying, we're really wanting to have equality, but really what we're not looking for equality, we're looking for equity, because equality is that first piece, which really the idea is that everyone gets the same thing. But when we're thinking of equity, sometimes the same thing isn't really what everyone needs. And rather, equity is like the bottom picture, where it's figuring out what people need to get to the outcomes that we want them to have or that they want to have, and making sure that maybe they need something that's slightly different in order to reach those outcomes. So it's the fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all people. It involves striving to identify and eliminate unfair biases, stereotypes, or barriers that may limit the full participation of individuals or groups in society or in a program or in something that the government is offering. So here, the desired outcome is that everyone can participate and be comfortable riding a bicycle, which ideally will lead to better health outcomes, mental and physical health. But they need slightly different bicycles in order to do so. Inclusion asks the question, has everyone been included and have everyone's ideas been heard? This is about creating welcoming spaces and opportunities for everyone to participate and succeed. So we're kind of thinking of those three all together. Diversity is having different people around the table. Equity is removing barriers so everyone has an equal chance to be around the table, recognizing that some spaces are associated with historical trauma. There may be making sure places are appropriate for various genders or religions, so making sure you have places for non-binary or gender diverse people. And inclusion is allowing everyone around the table to participate and make decisions. If you just have diversity without the others, then you risk tokenism, which is the appearance of inclusion without meaningful change. And that's definitely not what we want. We're looking for meaningful change in this work. So looking at the process of where we have gone to create our action plan, we started this in November 2020, where we did some background research. We collected some environmental state, assessed the current state. From there, we planned community and staff research. We collected that data. We then wrote a set of reports that are available on the Niagara Region website if you're interested in seeing them. We created a draft DEI action plan. We got feedback from that plan, and we finalized that plan. We got endorsement from the DEI Advisory Committee at the region, and we presented it to council, and it was approved in September 2022. So part of that research involved community and staff participants. So we analyzed 670 staff surveys, 1,599 community surveys. We used 110 staff focus group participant data and data from 81 community focus group participants. So of this data, some of the findings, so some of the key forms of discrimination were insulting comments, barriers to participation, teasing, mocking, or bullying, verbal abuse, hate speech, and microaggressions. One community member said, "The discrimination I have experienced are related to access. I have trouble getting into stores, older shops in the area because they are small and do not accommodate a person with physical disabilities or uses a wheelchair." And the key locations of discrimination were businesses, workplaces, interpersonal, social media, healthcare, public spaces. And one community member said, "We used to go for long walks and hikes when we were living in Mississauga, but after multiple incidents of people being rude, racist, and abusive, we've drastically reduced the amount of recreational time outside in Niagara." I've realized it somehow got deleted, the slide that our top 10, not in those notes, our top 5 types of discrimination. Seeing if I have it right here. Now I know exactly where it is on my,
I have it here, Cassie. Do you want me to read it out?
I've got it right here.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, the top 5 types of discrimination experienced by participants in the community survey were gender, 41% of individuals, age, 30%, mental health, 25%, ethnicity, 24%, and ability or disability, 23%. So there's more details in the full report. And usually I have a slide on that, but somehow it got lost this one. So the action plan, where we brought it from there, was a vision where Niagara Region is welcoming and inclusive, where diversity and equity are reflected and valued. And the mission is that the people of Niagara advance equity, build welcoming and inclusive communities and workplaces, while eliminating barriers and forms of discrimination. And the scope of the project includes Niagara Region as an organization, the local area municipalities, and Niagara Region as a geography or community. There's 6 guiding principles associated with the plan. The first is accountability, which means Niagara Region is committed to achieving the goals set out in this action plan and holding staff at all levels accountable for the multiple initiatives. Collaboration means that Niagara Region is committed to working in collaboration with the local area municipalities, community organizations, and community members to achieve the desired outcomes of this plan. The collaboration of all diverse groups is essential for the success of this work. Community expertise means that Niagara Region recognizes that people with different lived experiences are the experts in understanding the barriers they experience, have creative solutions, and are essential partners for achieving the desired outcomes of this action plan. Evidence-informed means that Niagara Region is committed to using evidence from other municipalities, academic sources, best practice guides, and community expertise to inform all work associated with the DEI action plan. The next principle, humility, is the cornerstone of this work. To achieve true equity and inclusion, we must be willing to humbly accept that we do not have all the answers. Niagara Region commits to lifelong learning, critical self-reflection, challenging power imbalances, developing mutually beneficial partnerships, and maintaining institutional consistency and accountability. Transparency means that Niagara Region commits to providing transparent, clear, and accurate reports on the progress of this action plan on a regular basis. And there's 6 focus areas. The first one, inclusive workplace culture, leadership, and accountability. This is about enabling an organization where leaders are accountable and provide an environment where staff and community members feel heard and respected. So one of the things that we're working on within this area is an employee cert award. That's like an employee recognition award within the region. And also developing a handbook on how to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into different areas of work at the region. Focus area B is increased understanding and humility through learning. This is about providing knowledge, skills, and learning opportunities for staff, counselors, volunteers, and community members to increase their ability to understand and use DEI principles and demonstrate cultural humility. We'll have we have a training plan for staff, counselors, and volunteers that we're starting to implement this year. Focus area C is a diverse workforce reflective of Niagara's community. This is about using evidence-informed best practices to recruit, hire, retain, and promote a more diverse workforce. So this, one of the things that we did already was develop an HR best practices guide that talks about how you can incorporate diversity and inclusion into promotion, recruitment, hiring, and promotion. So that we've now chosen a few different areas at the region that we're going to be focusing on. So we've just recently developed a DEI interview. It's a book that, it's not really a book, it's a document that has a number of potential questions that interviewers can use that are related to DEI. So some general ones, some leadership specific ones, as well as some that are specific to different departments. So that allows hiring managers to have ask some DEI specific questions of candidates. And it also includes some like potential ideal answers so that they can be scored as well on a consistent basis. Focus area D is programs and services meet the needs of everyone. This is about providing evidence-informed best practices and resources to incorporate DEI principles into Niagara Region programs and services. So one of the things that this includes is improving complaints processes for community members using Niagara Region programs or services that relate to bias and discrimination. Focus area E, addressing discrimination, is about reviewing and revising policies and processes in partnership with diverse communities to address and reduce discrimination experienced in Niagara. So one aspect that will be included in the DEI handbook will be on how to review policies with a diversity, equity, inclusion perspective. So in this area, it will be actually doing that by looking at policies and programs with that perspective. Final area is inclusive communication, which is about providing clear, inclusive, representative communication for staff and community members to showcase significant dates, provide key information, and recognize leaders that advance DEI. So one of the things within that is we have a calendar of significant dates, and we've chosen a set of either around 4 or 5 dates per month that we are going to be spotlighting. And so for each month, we have a summary of the significant dates that we share with our staff. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out to all staff. And then for those spotlight dates, we have a little bit of extra information that we provide on those dates. For a few of them throughout the year, we'll be doing a little bit extra education. We might bring in speakers, we might do a flag raising. So there's different things that we'll be doing throughout the year for that piece. A couple of other key milestones or activities for this year. I mentioned the DEI handbook already. We're also looking to create a DEI community of practice with community organizations, community members. Through that, we'll be looking to create and promote a DEI inclusion charter. And I mentioned the bias and complaints piece. Next year, we'll be continuing to work with staff and community to showcase significant dates. We're looking to incorporate DEI impacts into council reports and facilitate some town hall dialogues with diverse communities on discrimination issues. In 2025, we're looking to partner with community organizations to develop and deliver DEI learning for community members, review and revise policies, programs, and services incorporating DEI, and partner with community organizations to expand intern and co-op opportunities. So that's not everything. So the plan as a whole has 22 internal facing actions and 21 external facing actions. So this is really just a sample of those. So that's all I have for this today. This is my email address. There's also our diversity intake email address that you can use. It's a little bit easier to remember than mine. And you can also, Renee has my contact information. Matthew also has my contact information if you forget this. So I will stop sharing and welcome up to any questions that you might have.
Seeing kudos from Janice, that was indeed wonderful. Any questions from the floor? Tim, go ahead.
Here we go. Thank you for your presentation, Cassie. That was very good. Just a couple of questions. One is, can we access this slideshow that you had? Is that something that we're able to retain for ourselves?
Yes, absolutely. I've shared, you know what, the one I shared with Matthew, I'm gonna add in that other slide that somehow got forgotten. So I'll add that one back in and share it with Matthew again, and it'll be part of your minutes.
Okay, great. And also, can we be added to that list of recipients for the newsletter, or is that simply for your organization?
The one that I talked about is just for our organization. That being said, we might not have been as good at the moment as we should be, but we do share the content with the LAM. So Matthew is part of our local area municipality DEI working group. And I think, you know what, as I'm saying that, I don't think we have been doing that very well this year. So I'm going to put that on my to-do list. So those pieces, any of those communication that we have created are supposed to be going out to the LAMs so that they can share internally as well. And so Matthew could share that with this group or with staff. I'm just going to write that down on my to-do list.
Okay. And last question. I know it's not a competition in any way, but how is Niagara doing in comparison to other regions? Are we well behind? Are we in the forefront? I don't think we are, but I'm just asking.
Good question. I would say we're in the middle of the pack. So I'm part of a DEI community of practice, well, a couple of different community of practice, one that's Ontario-wide, and another one that's nationwide. And there's a few organizations and municipalities that are far ahead of us. They've been doing this work for 10, 15 years. Hamilton, Toronto, Ottawa, London, Halifax, Winnipeg, a few of those. Basically the bigger ones, plus London. I don't know how London got in that group, but they did. And well, I think there was actually a few incidents that caused London to get a bit of a head. They had some mandates that and legal pieces that made them go a bit ahead of us. So we're kind of holding on to their coattails, and I think we're quickly catching up. So we did a lot of research of what other municipalities were doing in terms of putting together this DEI action plan. And I think, in a couple of years, we'll be right there with the other ones. And it's actually kind of nice to have other places ahead of us because they've done a lot of these policies. They've worked out some of the kinks and some of the challenges. And they're willing to share things. So we can take some of the policies that other places have and just rework them a little bit. For this DEI handbook, most of the stuff we're not going to be creating ourselves. We're going to be pilfering from other places and more so just putting something together that's best practices that have been identified in other places. So in some ways, it's actually okay that we're not right at the front, but there are other places that are further behind us as well and just getting started that don't have the resources that we have here in the region. So we have gotten really good support from council and from staff in order to have resources, a full-time team that's dedicated to this work that is also able to support some of the things in the municipalities. So a lot of the things that we're developing, we're hoping can be utilized by the city of Thorold, for instance.
So if we as a committee come up with an idea that we'd like to pursue, but aren't quite sure of the direction we need to take, is that something we can run by yourself to see if there's been other communities that have already attacked a problem or an issue that we may want to solve so that we already have guidelines and suggestions?
Yeah, definitely through Matthew. It could come to me for, am I aware of this? Or sometimes, maybe I should get Matthew connected with the Ontario Community of Practice too. A lot of times people will send out emails with that group, has anyone got this policy? We want to do a gender diversity policy. Is it exist anywhere else in the province? And so that's a really good resource to get connected into for that purpose.
Great. Thank you so much.
Great. Any other questions? Saba?
Hi, everyone. So I was just appointed to this committee yesterday. So this is my first meeting with you all. So it's nice to meet everyone. So I apologize if this is kind of a silly question, but I work for the federal government. So I'm new to how things work at the municipal level. But is there an expectation that the LAMs, is that the acronym, like Thorold, is there an expectation that our work plans or whatever we build for DE&I kind of are consistent with the region's plan that you presented, and especially in terms of the focus areas or the priorities or the actions? Like, are we building things that are kind of feeding into the larger regional plan, or are they completely separate entities?
I think that's a good question. I don't know if Matthew, do you want to take that first?
Sure, I can take a run at it first. I think there are aspects of the regional plan that some of the work this committee can do will support, looking at the sort of the general level. And I think there are aspects of it that we can use to help develop our plan. But as a member of the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities, a lot of the work that we're going to be doing as a committee is going to be focused internally at the city of Thorold, its own policies, its organization, how it's functioning, similarly to how the regional one is looking at Niagara Region as an organization. So there is a little bit of that community larger component, but for the most part, we're going to be looking internally to how do we take these ideas and apply them to the city of Thorold.
And I think I would add to that is that, also understanding the capacity of the city of Thorold. So the DEI Niagara Region Action Plan has a lot of things to it. So I would recommend the one for Thorold to be a little bit more focused and not quite as ambitious as ours, because we might have bit off more than we can chew it in some aspects as well. It is quite an involved plan. So that would be something that I would also caution you in thinking about as to what are the key things for Thorold, but how can it work together with the regional plan.
Great, thank you.
Andrew?
Sorry I'm late. I fell asleep and I thought I was a little off. But anyway, one thing I wanted to mention, I just want to think with everything we do, we need to make sure it's clear, because a lot of times, with a lot of these things, they overwhelm and people don't understand what it's about. And we just want to make sure everything is clear because people get confused. Just the thing I was.
Thank you, Andrew. Absolutely. Any more questions for Cassie? Not seeing any. So again, Cassie, thank you for that wonderful presentation. I think it gives us a good sense of the direction that we'll be heading in for the city of Thorold. And of course, if you have any more questions for Cassie, please feel free to send them through Matthew and we will get those answered hopefully. So Cassie, thank you so much.
Great. Thanks for having me. And you know where to find me. All the best in this. Congratulations on being part of this new committee as well. I'm sure you will do great work.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Bye.
All right, so Saba had said, I'm going to just rejig things a little bit, sorry, Matthew and Sydney, but as Saba had said, we have some new members on the line, so I think it would be great if we did a roundtable just to familiarize ourselves with one another. So I'll kick it off. My name is Renee Nand, and I am the chair. My background is I'm a recent, not recent, it's been 2 years now that I've been living in Thorold. I came from the region of Peel. I work for the region of Peel. I'm the manager of community and cultural engagement there. I'm also a certified Canadian diversity inclusion professional. So this is really near and dear to my heart. And now that this is my home, I'm just seeing how I can contribute and give back in that way. So with that, I will hand it over to Tim.
Thank you, Renee. I'm Tim O'Hare. I'm a newly elected councillor, and I'm the councillor representative, not by appointment, but by choice. So I'm very proud to be here, and this very important committee, and I know we will make some really great changes in Thorold. I'm a retired teacher after 25 years in the classroom. I also am a retired business owner together with my wife. We ran a furniture design business for 25 years as well. And so now being a counselor for Thorold has reduced my workload from 2 jobs to 1 job, although they're about an equal amount of work as I'm finding out. So glad to be here.
Thank you, Tim, and I will hand it off to Cam.
Hi, everybody. How are we doing? I have lived in Niagara my whole life. I grew up in Fonthill, actually, but my fiance and I bought our home in Thorold right when COVID hit, so timing was perfect because Lord knows we couldn't buy it now. I went to Brock University for kinesiology and health sciences. I'm currently in the process of finishing my master's of public health. I specialize in epidemiology and biostatistics. So getting involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion, where we're going to be doing a lot of research on that end, and then trying to actually apply the research to something that's going to benefit the community is really where I'm trying to make a difference and contribute to. So really looking forward to seeing what we can do in the next little while, and hopefully we have a good time as well.
Thank you. Saba?
Hi everyone. So I'm Sabah. Let's see. I'm a senior environmental scientist for Crown Indigenous Relations in Northern Affairs Canada, so the federal government. And let's see. I was born and raised in Niagara region. My family was one of the first Muslim families to move to the Niagara region in the 70s. My great uncle moved here in the 70s and then sponsored my father. So we're 3 generations in Niagara. And I moved away for many years in my 20s and 30s. I kind of moved away for a good 15, 20 years and just moved back to Niagara region to Thorold in 2021, bought a house here. And like Cam said, I just got in the radar to buy, because if there's just no way I would have been priced out completely now. So same situation, and I'm excited to be here. I was on the regional DE&I committee for the government of Canada as well, and so it's been like growing up here. It's been great to see how much more diverse it's become, and so yeah. So I'm looking forward to getting to know everyone, and that's it. That's me.
Thank you. Andrew.
Hi, I'm a lifetime resident of Thorold, though I did go away for school for a little bit. But anyway, I'm here because I wanted to do stuff about non-visible disabilities, since I have one, and it's just sort of things that a lot of times are forgotten about, and I just thought to make sure things are good with that.
Thank you, Andrew. Fantastic. Janice.
Hi, everyone. So I've been living in the Niagara region for over 20 years now. I have 3 children who study within the District School Board of Niagara. Their ages are 14, 12, and 4. So I too might at times maybe have somebody pop into the room unexpectedly. So just to warn everybody. I'm currently doing my MA in Social Justice and Equity Studies at Brock, where I also taught at the post-secondary level for over 17 years. And my sister and I co-founded Chapters for Change, and we offer learning circles through different companies. I offer them through the District School Board of Niagara. And like Andrew, I'll just mention too, so Andrew doesn't feel alone, I also have a non-visible disability. And so, yeah, that's something that is close to my heart as well. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Janice. And I'll mention too, my husband has a non-visible disability, so I'm a caregiver, so I'm right there with you guys. And we'll hand it over to Manisa.
Hello. So my name is Manisa Rahman. I moved to Thorold like about 3 years ago. I have 4 children. All of them are boys, age 7, 5, 3, and 1. And myself, I have studied at the University of Toronto. I have a bachelor's degree in biochem and health studies. And I do teach science to high school students. So yeah, I thought that being as a parent, I would be a good candidate for this position in this committee, especially being of South Asian background and of Muslim origin.
Thank you. And Manisa, you are co-chair, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. We've only met once before, and I apologize for this weird filter on my camera if it's distracting at all. Over to you, Sydney.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I work for the City of Thorold. I work in the Clerk's Department as the legislative assistant. So my role is working with committees. I attend all the meetings and I take the minutes, and I also work with circulating the agendas. So that is mostly my role in the committee.
Thank you. And last but not least, Matthew.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Trenham. I'm the city clerk at the City of Thorold. I've been with the city for, it'll be a year in April. Past 10 years, I worked at Niagara Region. Born and raised in Toronto, but actually live in Niagara Falls now and work for the City of Thorold. My role really is acting as a staff liaison for the committee. So my goal is to listen, work with the committee, provide advice and assistance wherever I can, where it's needed to create reports or bring other areas of the municipality to the committee to do presentations or have access, whether it's policies. The clerk's office is usually the connection to committees like DEI, just because a lot of the work you do is focused on things like policy, larger change, action plans, this sort of work. And that's the kind of work that the clerk's office really gets involved in. However, what you'll probably see as we go through this process, where your focus shifts, perhaps if you're looking at employment policies, you might see our HR manager come in from time to assist as well, and or our health and safety person. There are so a few individuals that might either take my place or come in to assist me with some of this work, but I'll sort of be your go-to in terms of taking the decisions and recommendations this committee makes and turning it into reports that go to council and bringing that information back as well.
Thank you. Well, that's it for introductions. So we'll go into roundtable. If we have any questions or feedback about the process, as I said, it's all very new. I can kick it off actually. So Matthew and Sydney, in terms of looking internally and being internally focused on the city of Thorold, is there a work plan in terms of areas that we will be addressing, or is there a bit of like a schedule or calendar of what we'll be looking at through the course of these meetings?
So I can take that, Madam Chair. I think nothing formally exists yet. And part of what I'd like us to think about for the next couple of meetings is where you'd like to see that focus. I think we're probably a good chunk of time before we can develop something as strong or as well prepared as what we see from Niagara Region. I think that's one of our goals within the first 6 months to a year. I think there is some information collection that needs to be done in terms of surveys and that, some of which might end up at a budget request, possibly from council at some point, depending on how we want to do some of this work. So I think over the next little while, a lot of what we want to do is a learning, sharing, and sort of understanding the direction you'd like to take. There's a lot of learning that we can get from what Niagara Region has already done. As Cassie said, they have a great deal of items. There are some very small improvements we can immediately look at making and here and there, and have those recommendations go to council to be formally, recognized by the city. What I think I'd like to hear is sort of where or what areas of the organization do you want to hear from first? So are you looking for an understanding of the policy framework at the city, hiring practices, learning about what services are provided? So you do want to hear from our community services group, public works, or engineering or planning, or any of these areas, just again, to learn a little bit more about what the city does and where the committee would like to focus. So we'd be looking for a little bit of direction from there. And then from there, hopefully over the next few meetings, we can piece together what maybe the next 6 months to a year looks like as we really develop that bigger plan and the focus areas for the committee for the rest of the term.
Great. Any questions about that from the group? No. So then I think I will put a question forth to the group in terms of where we would like to start. It is quite rapidly growing area, Thorold particularly. So I know my interest resides around community services for newcomers. So I would personally like to hear from the community services group. Tim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really agree with a lot of the points that Matthew made. It's certainly a huge area of study that we're going to be find before us. I really like the idea of bringing people in as well to focus on specific topics, especially from the city, to see what the policies are directly, so that we can share them amongst ourselves. And if we need to make suggestions or do some research on that, that would be a great direction to take. So right now, I mean, my head is exploding with so many different areas that we really would want to reach out and start drawing information in about. But at the same time, we really need to make sure that we have a plan in place. And in a way, we want to be able to approach this plan with baby steps, so that we can familiarize ourselves, educate ourselves, and start to ask questions and make suggestions. So that's what I'm thinking as I'm, hearing these introductory periods in our committee. Thanks.
Thank you. Matthew?
So just to add on to that, as we start to come up with some topics, Cassie did touch on one point that I'll just sort of raise, is the idea of resourcing. If we look at the region, I think they have 5 or 6 individuals that are solely working on diversity, equity, and inclusion as sort of a department almost. Whereas at the moment, you've got a portion of me. So that being said, what this committee does allow for is working groups as well. So a working group is an assemblance of members of the committee that get together to look at a very specific topic over a defined period of time. So if, for example, you want to come up with our own definitions for diversity, equity, inclusion to sort of be included in the documentation that the city's using, just as an example, whether it's on our website or in our strategic plan that'll be coming out of the end of this year or anything along those lines, you can strike a working group of, I would say, no more than 3 members of the committee at any one time, just so we don't have a quorum of the committee at any period. And those working groups can always access community groups and other members as well. So if, for example, we were looking towards some work that we're going to do for Pride in June, just as an example, as a large event and a large month that we concentrate on for the calendar year. If you had a working group that was set together for that, you could reach out to Pride Niagara, just as an example, to bring somebody on to help advise the committee if there's a direction that we're looking to go with. So just some advice for that. So if you have questions along those lines, if it's something where you need information from the city, you can always provide direction to us to go ahead and prepare a memorandum or a report that we can bring back to this committee to give you the information that you need to make some decisions on the directions that you're going for as well. So just there's a lot of administrative pieces that go with making a committee work like this. Working groups don't require staff support, so you just need to basically take minutes yourselves as to what are the decisions or recommendations you're making as a working group, bring that back to the committee, and that sort of becomes a standing item. So those are just a few tidbits that you can use on how to do some of this work in order to get further involved as committee members yourselves. But when it comes to information about the city, or you need us to pull information from other sources, that would be providing direction to myself to work with staff to be able to pull something together for you.
Thank you very much. Cam, any areas of focus that you'd like to hone in on?
Sorry. I love the idea of doing community service group, looking to see what kind of resources are out in the community and what we can prioritize or focus on to reach a larger group of the population, or better yet, to make sure that there's equity rather than the equality approach to things. But it's just a matter, the other side of that coin for me is the policy review for for hiring and the internal of the city of Thorold itself as an organization, before we want to start making changes externally in the, for the people who live in Thorold. Are there any kind of reviews and changes that we can make internally? Just any kind of policies or any kind of procedures that might shape a better foundation for where we're trying to lead this group or changes to down the road.
That's terrific. Thank you. And if I remember correctly, I think that's how we started with the Niagara region review. So that's a really great point. Saba?
Oh no, sorry. I didn't have.
Oh, any areas of focus that you'd like to start in on?
Oh, I like the ideas that have been proposed so far. One of the things I think, if we're looking at talking about what do we want to prioritize and focus on first, I'd love to hear from the community on what they think we should prioritize and put first too. And I'm not familiar with the resourcing or budgeting behind something like town hall meetings or how those work here, but I think it would be interesting to hear from people who live in Thorold on what some of their priorities are immediately.
That's great. To Matthew, can you let us know, has any of that work been done or any questionnaires or anything?
So not to date, we haven't conducted any surveys. Certainly some survey work could be done. What the region was able to do is they were able to get a hold of some budget dollars to bring in a third-party company to do that for them. Benefits of being able to do that, of course, you're assured of areas such as confidentiality, and they're using comparables, and they have grander resources as a company that does this regularly to create a really solid survey and also provide you some data analytics on it. We're a little more limited if we do that ourselves. We can certainly do something ourselves that would not necessarily cost anything other than some staff time. But if that's something that we want to look at as, perhaps one of the goals, we could always put in a budget request of council to do this in the beginning of the next year as an example. But if we want to do something internally, certainly things like a town hall or trying to get together a community survey is something that we could do.
Just a follow-up question then, Matthew. So I'm not sure how this works in terms of confidentiality between like the city and the region, but is it possible for us to get access to the survey and the results of the data that the region collected?
So through the chair, I do believe that some of their information was made public. I can certainly put in that request to Cassie to see if any of the high-level data could just be shared in a document form that we could put on an agenda just for us to look at. And again, that's a great example of, let's not reinvent the wheel. If we do have a survey, that's great. And then perhaps if we do want to do surveys, let's say we're looking at some of the community services work that we're doing and the way we're offering our services, and we're looking at it from an accessibility perspective or an inclusivity perspective or an equity to service perspective. The surveys we might be looking at might be solely focused on one of those areas or a type of service, just as an example. But I can I'll make a note to reach out to Cassie and see if that's something that could be shared.
Thanks.
Fantastic, thank you. Andrew, areas of focus where you'd like to begin?
That's hard to always think because your brain just goes everywhere. But all I want to make sure is that I feel like we need to make sure it's not something that's usually best to focus on is something that covers a lot, not a little, because we're all about diversity. So we want to help the majority. So we don't want to go to something that's very narrow to start with, even though we should go to everything eventually. It's just how that I feel, and we should make sure whatever it is inclusive, because a lot of things out there, either inclusive by rules or inclusive by how it is, because a lot of things out there are like age inclusive almost, it feels like only a certain age really feels like doing it. Or there are times where you can't do it because you're working. Something that has that isn't just narrow, like it has a little bit of variety, because people's lives you never know what's going on.
Okay, so looking at larger scope. Thank you, Andrew. And Janice, areas of focus to start it and with the region.
Yeah, so I like what Andrew just said about making sure that things are inclusive on a larger scale, but being able to hone that in. So the idea of the working groups really resonated with me. Yeah, I love the idea of the Pride working group. I'd love to be a part of that if that were to come to fruition. But yeah, having those working groups and starting with that education piece to know where we want to be moving forward. But yeah, I love all of the suggestions that have been made thus far.
Fantastic, thank you. And Manisa, areas of focus from the region that you'd like to start with in terms of education.
So most of the things have already been mentioned. There are one topic that I did want to mention. It is more of a specific, not a very like a narrow topic. So Ramadan is starting soon. So if we can get something specifically for Muslims in the region of Thorold, I know that we are also increasing the population of Muslims here. So if there's something that we can do, maybe surveys or something specifically targeting Muslims.
Thank you. Through to Matthew, are there any flag raisings, any acknowledgements, any protocol in place that addresses these days of recognition or observances like Ramadan?
So great question. We are circulated on the important dates and dates of interest from the region. So we do receive that information. A lot of it is internal and through our social media when we're talking external. In terms of flag raisings, we do have a flag raising policy on that. Essentially, a community group is welcome at any time to request a flag raising. They do have to be able to provide a flag. So using Pride as an example, every June we do receive a request from Pride Niagara. We do raise the Pride flag. It's usually the first 2 weeks of June that one that's placed up. And then I think there's another one that usually ends up for the second half of June, just because there's a few events that are happening that month. But that's just sort of an example. It's an application process according to that policy. But if there is a date that this committee thinks needs some more recognition along those lines, that's a great way to, put forward some recommendations to staff. We'd like to see something along this lines. Again, if there's a working group, ways to kind of gather some more information to provide to staff to assist with providing that direction.
Thank you. So I've heard a couple of ideas with regard to working groups. Sydney, Matthew, do we need anyone to put forth, I guess, a motion if they want to establish a working group?
Yes. So if somebody would like a working group, you just want a motion to do so. What we would look for from a motion is essentially what is the purpose of the working group and an approximate timeline of what we're going to have it go for. These are usually shorter term. You're looking at either 1 to 2 quarters because we're gearing up for something specific or gathering some specific information. But the committee can always reevaluate whether you need to extend that or change it or adjust as you move along as needed.
Okay. So would anyone like to, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just an idea, is it something that we should consider that we come back to our next meeting with some possible subgroups that we'd like to work on under specific themes, just so that we don't spread ourselves too thinly already and then realize that we missed out on something? Maybe we can create a collection of topics that we may want to break down into smaller groups, and then we can select which ones we really would be able to devote our time to.
Thank you. Good idea. Janice?
I was just going to bounce off of what Tim was saying there. Would it be possible maybe for us to create something like a Google Doc that we could kind of add to before the next meeting with some of the suggestions for working groups, and maybe we could, fill in our names if we might be interested in a specific working group, and that way coming into the next meeting we're a little bit more prepared that way?
So Sydney, Matthew, I don't know if there is something through the region like a shared drive that we could use, or if that's something we would be required to set up amongst ourselves.
Let me just look into it. There is an ability to share some documentation. I just don't know if it is editable. So if I can share a Excel spreadsheet, if all you can do is download it, or if you can edit it. So if the answer to it is you can't edit it, then someone would have to take that on and perhaps create it and then share amongst the group. The only thing I will advise the group is we just want to be careful about communications and large groups of meetings where we have a quorum of the committee together. So for example, if an email goes out to all of the committee and there's some back and forth, and that back and forth at any point advances the business of the committee, that can be seen as a meeting held in absence of the public. So from an access and transparency perspective, those emails then look like a closed session meeting. So we just want to be careful of that. So in creating a document to, sign up for groups that we then formally put into a motion in the next meeting, that seems reasonable because it's essentially data collection on who's interested. We just want to be careful about too much idea sharing or anything that might move the, again, business outside of an open meeting. So what we should do in public open meetings or in those working groups, wherever possible.
Fantastic. Any more questions or comments? Saba?
Just a couple of questions. My first question is, are these meetings always going to be virtual, or will there be kind of in-person meetings or hybrid options? That's my first question. My second question is, are these recordings during our meeting, are they posted online and publicly available, or only by like an ETIP request?
Yep. So I can take both of those. So it is being live streamed right now to YouTube and is available on YouTube through our channel, through the city's website. Our goal is to continue hybrid meetings as a go-forward policy. Essentially, we can meet in person. The only issue is we don't currently have the technology to do that other than meeting at City Hall's council chambers. So we can hold a virtual meeting there, but we do have a report that we're, sorry, I just had a little one enter my room as well. We do have a report going in March to council to look at our hybrid options and possibly purchasing things to allow us to expand that.
Great. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, so I think we've provided some options in terms of education that we will leave with Sydney and Matthew to arrange for any additional presenters. And then we'll explore the options for the working groups. And if we have the ability to collect that information electronically without making any decisions, but simply collecting working groups that we would be interested in. Okay. Matthew?
And just for the next meeting, and this is me sort of going off of the discussion that we've had, we'll certainly include the working group discussion on the next agenda. Perhaps what we'll do is we'll try to share the schedule of significant dates for the region as well, so that the committee has access to that. And then what I will do is I will look at either a presentation or somebody coming from our community services group to speak to the group, and or someone from HR and health and safety with regards to hiring practices. The region did, of course, create a hiring, diversity, equity, and inclusion hiring guide that they are just in the process of making public. I'm hoping by the end of this week, if not next week, which means I should be able to put that on. Now, I don't want to take our meetings to put too much on our meetings, but either the hiring practices or the community services group will add to the next one, and then the other one to the meeting after that, if the group is reasonable with that for an agenda. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great. And once the handbook is completed and made public, would it be distributed to us or presented? And then would we have an opportunity to provide feedback?
Absolutely. I can certainly see if we can get anybody to specifically speak to it. If we can't, what we'll do is we'll present it to the group as an item, giving everyone an opportunity to read it ahead of time and perhaps ask questions that are more geared to how do we create or incorporate any of this specific to the city of Thorold.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, if there's no more comments or questions, we will be adjourning. The next meeting is scheduled for April 6th, and the time will be at 5 p.m. Okay, and if there's no further business, do I need someone to move that? No, there's no further business, then this meeting is adjourned for the evening. So everyone have a great night, and we will see you next month. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Chair.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.